Morning Tailgate Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, good Sunday morning, everybody. It's Justin Kinner and not Keith Byers. It's Kev Nash today here live from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. It's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live from Frickers, but technically it's the Justin Kinner Show and Kevin Nash Show today, so there you go. It's as if me and Kev thought, man, we don't work enough together. We should do a show together on Sunday mornings. But no, Keith is out and you got called out of the bullpen. So we appreciate you coming up this morning.
Got the righty out the bullpen. And shouts out to the Braves back in the World Series.
Hey, I'm just happy for the Houston Astros. No, actually, I am pulling for the Astros.
Really?
Braves used to be my team. I don't hate the Braves, but I'm a big Dusty Baker fan because it sticks it to all the Reds fans that thought that they were better off without him. And he's sitting pretty, and the Reds are happy about being over 500 and missing the playoffs. So there you go.
I'm definitely rooting for the Braves in the World Series. One of my best friends, he actually lives in Houston, and I was hitting him up yesterday as the game was going on. I was like, hey, man, y'all up 2-0. If y'all win it, I know you're going to a World Series game. He's like, absolutely, I'm going to go to a game if we can hang on. I was like, you know you're going to be like the most hated man in all of Houston. It's like, man, I don't care, man. Like, we ain't won the World Series since 99. It's like, if we go, I'm there at least one game. So congratulations to the Braves.
Absolutely. I can't believe we're already at the World Series portion of everything. Of course, no Reds Fest this year. That was announced really early at the beginning of the Cincinnati Reds season. But no Reds Fest. I am hearing rumblings that the Reds Caravan will be making its way back through the Dayton area, though. So that's pretty exciting. But Justin Kinner, Kev Nash with you here. And yesterday, so on Friday's show, we were talking about look, we can't sit there. You look at all these matchups, and there's not a whole lot of upset material type matchups. And, it's difficult. Look, the reason that upsets are so surprising is because why? Nobody sees them coming. So the people out there that like to predict the upsets, I'm just like, it's luck. It's just like, you play it. If you go to the casino, any game you play, it's more luck than anything else. And that's what picking upsets is. But this year, we know that a top 10 team has gone down in every single week. There has not been one week that the top 10 has been unscathed. There has not been one week that the top 8 have gone unscathed. So we knew someone was going to go down, and it looked as if quite a few dominoes were going to fall yesterday. Alabama and Tennessee was close late last night. You look at the fact that, Oklahoma, came back and they feel good about it, I guess, but that was an ugly win, but a win's a win, and they, were able to recover and, win by a few touchdowns. They didn't cover, but they got the win. Cincinnati, that weird scenario that everyone was fearing basically played out, but they took care of business and they got the win. Bearcat fans are uneasy. I find them on the defense this morning, and I understand why. But as I've been saying from the beginning, you can't ask to be treated like Ohio State and Alabama and then get mad when you get treated like Ohio State and Alabama. And what I mean by that is that wasn't a pretty game. I keep seeing Bearcat fans say, oh, well, they're traditionally a hard out. I get that. I get that. But even a traditional hard out for Ohio State and others, it's not as close that deep into the fourth quarter. And if it is for those teams, we hold them accountable. So the Bearcat fans, you're getting treated the way you wanted to be treated. You just don't like how you're being treated, if that makes sense. But a very great day in college football yesterday. Ohio State, by the way, dominant. There's only 2 teams right now, Kev, that I feel like are clicking on all cylinders, and that's Ohio State and Georgia. They're Georgia and Ohio State. I think that right now they're the top 2 teams in the country. How you would rank them could be difficult because Ohio State does have a loss, but so does Alabama, and they're sitting up there at the top. The Bearcats are undefeated. Oklahoma's undefeated. The committee they're in for a mess. This is as difficult a year as I can remember.
Oh, you're right. It's absolutely great college football on Saturday. See, we talked about this on our show. We looked at the matchups like, it's not that big of a matchup. But we all said as we were wrapping up the show, like, well, it is college football. Top 10 teams have lost every single week. It's likely to happen, and that's what we got into our predictions, like what games we want to keep an eye on for possible situations where the lower team could actually win. And the game that I talked about, Michigan and Northwestern, that didn't come to fruition. But the other game that I talked about was UC and Navy. And it wasn't because it's Navy. It's simply because these things later and later you get into the season, you get lemon booty. And for people who don't know what lemon booty is, you get play tight. And that's what I saw UC doing. I saw them playing tight. I saw them trailing in that slow pace, slugging game of Navy. You weren't able to get your explosive offense on the field. Navy was 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. And we all know that Navy goes for it on fourth down more than any other team out there.
Yep.
If you're picking up 3 yards on those dive plays, you get the 4th and 1, they're going to go for it, especially if they're at the 50. So Navy had possession of the ball, and UC's offense just could not get clicking. Eventually, they got some stops and was able to put some points up on the board and got up 14. But shoot, to Navy's credit, they went down and scored and then recovered the onside kick to actually have a chance to tie the game up or even win it with a 2-point conversion. And UC ended up getting an interception because we all know Navy can't pass. And UC has one of the best pass defenses in the country. So that played into UC's hands. But you're right. When you're a program like UC, not only are you up against it from the outside people, the outside voices and everything like that, but you're trying to break through. You're trying to bust through that glass ceiling, so to speak. So you have to come out there and play some good football. My only thing about that is we look at Oklahoma and say it was like almost like a college basketball situation. Oof. And March Madness, survive in advance. Like, that's how we're viewing the win for Oklahoma. But for the win for UC, it's like, see, y'all not here. Y'all not ready. Y'all not ready. Y'all had a close one with Navy. And that's true. But the biggest thing that happened for UC yesterday, Penn State lost.
Yep.
So,
and another conference was or you look at Oklahoma State going down too. Yes. Definitely helped.
Yes.
But so Iowa State getting the win. I'm a big fan of their coach. He's
young Matt Campbell. I know you're a big fan.
Oh yeah. But you look at Oklahoma's resume right now. It's not the sexiest. They do have a win over top 25 Texas, of course. They did beat TCU and Kansas State, West Virginia,
real quick.
Nebraska.
How do you view top 10 or top 25 victories? Do you view them as when they happen or currently?
That's tough because at the time, this is why I'm not a fan of ranking. I wish if college football won't do this, and the AP poll could still come out all at once. I don't think college football can dictate whether that comes out or not.
Right.
But I wouldn't even look at those until the only poll that matters is the playoff poll.
Right.
So here's what ends up happening is right now we're taking, everyone's taking credit for all these wins, but Notre Dame at the time, what were they when they lost? Not number 9 when Cincinnati beat them, or 7 or something like that.
Something like that.
So when Cincinnati beat them at 9, 8, or 7, or wherever they were ranked at the time, they're holding on to that. But when the college football playoff poll comes out, and let's say they're sitting at 14 or 13, like I just think that poll's all that matters at that point. The AP poll matters now because it sets the stage, it sets the tone for who the contenders are heading into the first playoff poll. But I don't know. I don't know what the right answer there is. I think the right answer is full body of work says that team wasn't as good as you thought. But at the time that you played them, you technically did beat that team with that number right in front of them. I think it's tough. I don't know nobody out there has the right answer or has the definitive answer or solution there. And the College Football Playoff Committee, they get out of that by saying, well, we look at the full body of work.
Yeah.
We look at everything. And that's how they get out of it. So at the end, they say, well, it was a nice win over Notre Dame. But if Notre Dame loses 2 more games, all of a sudden Cincinnati's in trouble. So, look, there's a lot going against Cincinnati, but again, Cincinnati, they want the benefit of the doubt that Ohio State gets with the loss already. They want that same benefit of the doubt that Alabama has with the loss. They're upset. They're saying, look, Ohio State has a loss. Alabama has a loss. And you're sitting here getting mad at us because we're undefeated and we had a sloppy game against Navy. Yes, you are still beating down that perception about the non-power 5s, but I don't even think that's a perception. I still think that there has to be something said about strength of schedule. We hold it against programs all the time. I don't think that we're bullying or that people are bullying that. I mean, Joe Clack came out today. He didn't have Cincinnati in his top 4. He had Michigan at number 4. He had Ohio State at 2 and Georgia 1 and Alabama 3. That was his top 4. Kirk Herbstreit, same. He did have Cincinnati at 4. I think Cincinnati, you can make an argument to keep it or to move down to 4. I also don't mind them dropping out of the top 4. I'm pro Cincinnati, but I'm also not going to bash the process because the process is valid for how they're being perceived. And I don't want for Cincinnati, I don't want them to get the benefit of the doubt because they're a feel-good story. And that's the problem I have is Bearcat fans are wanting to be given the benefit of the doubt because they're a feel-good story. And I'm not okay with that. I don't like that. My
thing about the UC situation is a lot of people have the fear of if they go to the college football playoff and end up getting blown out.
Yep.
What's the difference? Ohio State's been blown out multiple times that we've been in the playoff. Clemson's been blown out. Bama's been blown out. Like that, I want that removed. I want that fear removed. Like if they go to the college football playoff and embarrass themselves.
To be fair, I don't think that that's even considered.
Really?
I mean, Bearcat fans are doing this whole thing of our resume is fantastic. We are just as deserving of being there as anybody else. I don't think that the committee looks at the resumes heading in. I don't think the committee has ever kept anyone out of fear of being blown out. I used to think that until they continued putting Notre Dame in year in and year out, right? But no, I'm with you. I think I could see why people would think that, but I do think that the committee just strictly looks at the resumes. I've never said the playoff has never been about the 4 best teams. It's always been about the 4 best resumes. And right now, I don't think Cincinnati's resume is terrible, but unfortunately for them, it just gets worse each week, and it's not their fault. But it's like every time that they're playing a subpar to below average team, Ohio State's who just suffered a 9 overtime loss to Illinois. My goodness. I love college football season. I love the 14 playoff. I love all of this banter. I love all of the uncertainty. The worst part of college football is the playoff format, which also is the best part because it leads to the conversation. It leads to the chaos. It leads to the drama. Who wants a 12-team playoff where every weekend we come up on Sunday and just say, well, Alabama lost their second game, but they're fine. Ohio State, they lost their third game, but I still think they have a chance to get in.
Right.
It's not a good format.
And yeah, especially with 130 teams. There's 130 teams in college football. My thing about UC is they got the second best win out of anybody in college football right now. Outside of Oregon coming to the horseshoe and winning, I would say UC's win at Notre Dame is the second best out of anybody. The problem is other teams have better second wins, better third wins, better fourth wins. And in Ohio State's case, they're eventually going to have better fifth, sixth, and seventh wins than UC. So that's where the problem is. You may have one great win, but you don't have multiple other wins to stack upon it. Like we've been saying for weeks, UC needs to be big Notre Dame fans. UC needs to root for SMU because currently SMU is undefeated and ranked like number 20. So their matchup versus them later on in the season is going to be a big opportunity for them. They need a lot of stuff to go their way. They need a ton of things to go their way for them to, I don't want to say backdoor their way into the college football playoff because I do think they're a real good football team. But we know perception out there is, you're playing this team. You're playing this team. You're playing that team. While other schools are playing Vanderbilt and Tennessee, for some reason, those wins are propped up higher for some reason. But ultimately, UC win the games, man. Because if you don't win the games, you're going to be out the argument regardless. Because if you ended up losing, it's over. It's over. Every argument you had will be out the window. At the bare minimum, you want to be going into that championship weekend with an opportunity to get into the college football playoff. So what you need to do first and foremost, UC, is to win the games. Yes, style points matter. We talked about this a ton on our show, but number 1 is to win the game. Number 2 is style points. And then number 3 is worry about the rest. And you know what you can't do? You really can't worry about the rest until you handle A, B, and C.
All right, Justin Kinner, Kev Nash with you here live from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. It's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show. We're out here every Sunday morning, of course. We jump in and recap the big college basketball. I do have college basketball on my mind, so there you go. But we recap all the big top games in college football from College Football Saturday, and then coming up here in the next hour, we will get you set for all the top NFL Week 7 matchups, including your Cincinnati Bengals on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. 6.5-point underdogs are your Cincinnati Bengals, and we'll talk about their chances. The Browns were victorious on Thursday night in an ugly game, but a win. The difference between the NFL and college football, a win is a win. I hold the Bengals and the Browns. I always treat them like the college football playoff committee. I'm like, yeah, they won, but the Bearcats and the Bengals are the same. They haven't beaten anybody, right? Like actually, the Bearcats have a better win than the Bengals at this point. But just razz them a bit, but no, the big opportunity for the Bengals coming up, and we'll talk about that. So, Kev, the Big Ten yesterday, that was a mess. It's been a mess. I mean, the Big Ten has crumbled the last 2 weeks. Iowa going down against, Iowa 3 weeks ago beats Penn State. And I was like, that's a huge win for the Big Ten. Iowa's number 2. That's great for Ohio State. Penn State's right there still on the outside, but they're still high top 10. Like, this is great for the Big Ten. There's Ohio State. Then you have Michigan and Michigan State on the outside. Michigan yesterday, they did get the win. I still not sold on Michigan being a legitimate contender, but they're undefeated. We're heading into November. At this point, usually we've seen the Harbaugh slip up. And we haven't seen the Harbaugh slip up yet, but they have some opportunities coming up. But, Michigan hasn't looked fantastic, but they are undefeated. Michigan State's a feel-good story. They're still undefeated. They had a bye week. They'll be back in action next week. And then, of course, you look at the fact that, Iowa went down last week, the number 2 team, getting blown out by an unranked Purdue team at home. That's unacceptable. And then Penn State losing to Illinois the way that they did. Penn State, that game needed to be theirs. That had to set up the big showdown with Ohio State. That would have been a playoff elimination game. It technically still is. If Ohio State loses, they're eliminated as well. But the Big Ten went from, wow, we got 5 teams in the top 10 the first month and a half of the season to, man, it's been ugly for Penn State, Iowa. 2 of the top teams were carrying the Big Ten along with Ohio State. Not a pretty couple weeks for the Big Ten.
The problem is we all know that these teams are going to play each other, and they're going to start knocking each other off. The problem is when you get knocked off before you play that other big dog. And I was talking about this with my brother. Penn State always seems to lose before they get their opportunity to play against Ohio State in that eliminator game.
A trap game.
Trap game.
Trap game, Mark. I hope you're listening.
So I was watching that game yesterday, and Penn State has so many opportunities. But the reality of the situation, Illinois just ran the ball down their throat. Like they just said, we're going to line up. We're going to put 5-6 offensive linemen out here, and we're just going to run straight into the line of scrimmage.
Trevion Henderson on line 1, by the way.
Absolutely. And, they went into the new wacky overtime situation. How do you feel about the new OT?
I hate all overtimes in football.
Really?
I hate it. I hate it with a passion. We've talked about this before, but for me, when you look at baseball, you go into extras. We've talked about the runner on second rule, but overall you're getting a full, the extra innings in baseball. It's the same inning that you're watching as every other preview. The game it's just an extension of the game. It's overtime. It's extra innings. The game just continues. Regulation couldn't determine a winner. So you just put more time up on the clock, or you put another inning, you go out for another inning. I hate football. I think it's gimmicky. I think that, you bust your ass for those 4 quarters just to get to that weird little gimmicky all-star weekend type stuff that has the feel of. I hated that. I just think 10 fresh minutes up on the clock. I like the NFL's not terrible. I don't like the aspect that you could tie still, but the NFL's isn't terrible. They put more time up on the clock. I just don't even think it should be the first one to score a touchdown wins or a field, whatever. I think it should 10 minutes on the clock. You score, they keep scoring. Fine, but whoever's leading when that timer hits 0. I hate the overtime rules in football. I really do. I just think they're too gimmicky, and I just don't like it. But that was ugly yesterday. People were like, I saw 9 overtimes, and I had to keep hitting refresh. I'm like, that can't be right. It was 9 overtimes. I'm like, just stop. Just put 10 minutes up on the clock. Let their 12 or whatever, put a whole extra quarter on there. I know everyone's worried about player safety. Oh, stop. They're talking about adding a 12-team playoff, and you mean to tell me that college football doesn't do that because they're worried about player safety? So I just think put 10 or full quarter up on the clock, play that extra, and go from there. But NFL's isn't the worst. I'll take the NFL's overtime over college any day.
Yeah, they went back and forth with the failed 2-point conversions and everything like that. And
it's ugly football. That's really what it comes down to.
It was bad. It was very bad for Penn State because they had 2 opportunities where they tried to trick play, the old play that the Eagles did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and the quarterback Clifford were wide open, but the running back or tight end, whoever threw it to him, short-armed it, and that would have been ball game. But no, it went on and on and on and on and on, and then eventually, Illinois was able to get the dub, and now you look at Penn State in a situation they now have 2 losses and everything like that. Is Clifford going to play next week versus the Buckeyes? I mean, he's banged up, so is he going to play next week? You have that night game where Ohio State's busting out the all-red unis and everything like that. You and I we're talking about potentially going up to that game and everything like that.
Still no word on them tickets, man.
So now it's like, do I want to go to that game? Like, I was going to that game because of everything that was at stake. And
it was a playoff game.
Yeah.
It was an elimination game. Whoever lost that game next week would have been officially eliminated from the playoff. Penn State just got eliminated a week early. Penn State's just looking to remain at the top to have a nice New Year's Day, New Year's 6 bowl game at this point. But Ohio State could technically still be eliminated, obviously. Right. But it's lost a little bit of its luster. That happens to Ohio State every year.
Yeah.
every year that happens. And, it's frustrating, but it is what Ohio State just has to keep playing their game because they're playing good football right now.
Yeah, you can't worry about what your opponents are doing. You just worry about yourself. And like I was talking about before, with them losing before the big matchup with Ohio State, that sucks, man, because it's fine to lose. You can lose these eliminator games. You can lose these games like, with that team up north and Michigan State playing next week. Okay, obviously one team is going to lose, but that's not it. But if they'd have lost the week before, it would have took all the luster off that matchup next week. And speaking of next week is a park, on the couch Saturday. I mean, you got that team up north versus Michigan State at noon. I'm sure there's a great 3:30 game. And then obviously Ohio State, Penn State at nighttime, man. I mean, college football is back, man. It's in full swing. It's a lot of things at stake with UC, with Oklahoma having that stinker in the first half versus Kansas. Like, everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. This thing is wide open. And for once, I don't envy the college football committee, because there's going to be that team that's going to be at 5th and 6th that you could make a legitimate argument for that they could be in the Final Four. And in normal years, like, I could brush it away. You can find a reason why they're not going to be in there. But this year, I believe there's going to be multiple teams that have a legitimate argument to be in that Final Four.
All right, if you want to give us a call, you can do so. Give Brandon Williams, he's sitting back. And is he related to Caleb Williams, by the way? I didn't know if he had, but give Brandon Williams a call back in the studio. 518-1410, 518-1410. He will patch you out to us here and at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. Your thoughts on a crazy day in college football yesterday. This has been the most enjoyable college football season that I can remember in quite some time. But give us a call, 518-1410. Brandon will get all your information, and he'll get you patched to us out here. We'll gladly take your call. I want to hear from Bearcat fans. How do you feel yesterday? Do you feel like you're being treated unfairly for the sloppy win over Navy? Including me, my rankings right now have Oklahoma still ranked ahead of Cincinnati. I have Ohio State at number 2. I'm just curious everyone's thoughts on this right now, but give us a call, 518-1410. The perception of Cincinnati is what? Everything's not so isolated either. It's not as simple as, well, Oklahoma struggled against Kansas, Navy struggled against, or Cincinnati struggled against Navy. You're beating up on Cincinnati. It's the full body of work. Oklahoma's previous body of work gives them a little wiggle room to have one of those down games against an Oklahoma. That's the thing that you have to consider. Cincinnati's body of work just doesn't give them that benefit of the doubt. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's going to come down to. But give us a call, 518-1410. Give Brandon a call back there. Real quick, your thoughts on that too. I mean, the Bearcat fans who are a little upset about that the double standard of, Oklahoma wins ugly against Kansas, it's a good win, which I disagree. I'm not a fan of how Oklahoma looked yesterday. I think that right now, as we head into November, teams should be playing their best football.
Right.
And I think there's only 2 teams who are playing dominant football right now, and that's Georgia and Ohio State. Now, you could crack on Ohio State's schedule, but again, the opponents that they're playing, the scores indicate that.
Right.
Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the bad schedule, the scores don't indicate the bad schedule, and that's the problem. That's the problem with Oklahoma's win over Kansas yesterday. That's the problem with the Bearcats' win over Navy yesterday. Cincinnati was rewarded for blowing out bad teams the last couple weeks. That's why they were given that number 2 ranking. They didn't do that yesterday, but they feel like they're being treated unfairly. Your thoughts before we go to the top of the hour?
Not necessarily unfairly treated, but I'll relay something that you talked about earlier in the show. Full body of work, because earlier in the season when Ohio State played that Tulsa game, they were quote unquote punished and everything like that.
Back-to-back weeks they were punished for wins.
Right.
They beat Tulsa, dropped. They beat who they beat after that? Was it Akron? They beat Akron under the lights. They dropped again, and they blew Akron out, and they still dropped, and that had Buckeye fans furious. So, no, Bearcat fans, I don't feel like you're being beat up on. Like, Ohio State dropped after blowing, and they blew Akron out like you wouldn't believe, and they still dropped. So, sorry, go back to your point. But
and my whole thing is, like you talked about, the full body of work. If we're going to look at this whole pie and everything like that, this whole pie of college football season and a team's whole resume, UC can't worry about what the other teams are doing, because that's how you lose. I'm telling you, that's how this thing goes. When you start looking ahead, saying like, all right, we got to put up style points. Let the coaches worry about that. As the players
execute the plays that are being called.
Absolutely. You can't worry about that. Like, kind of do your job. We talked about this, and we brought up this analogy before. Like, when you're down 15 points in basketball and you just start chucking threes and you're not a three-point shooting team, that 15-point deficit turns into a 20-point deficit because you're trying to hit the home run. You're trying to get it all back in one play. You can't worry about that. And it ultimately, as a fan base, if you worry about that, guess what? That ain't doing nothing. You worrying about it, you complaining on Twitter about this, that, third, and the fifth, that's not going to do nothing. The only person that can have something that has legitimate things to say about it is Coach Fickle. He can put the message out there, but ultimately it's up to the team to go out there and execute and win the games.
And coaches should do that, by the way. People watch. Nick Saban is the king of that, by the way. Remember those years that they've been on the bubble? Mm-hmm. And Saban's out calling out the committee. He's calling out this. He's going on radio shows. He's tweeting out. And people got irritated by that. And I said, I'm not irritated. You know who I'm irritated with was Ryan Day. Or it was Urban Meyer that one year. I'm like, Urban Meyer should be doing that because it was that year Buckeyes in Alabama. Alabama got in over Ohio State. It was the year that Haskins had started. They lost to Purdue. And that was the same year that Alabama had to lose. Saban was out politicking for his team. And Urban was silent. No one was saying anything. I was like, that's who you need to be frustrated with is Saban's out politicking for his team. And I think it's really going to take Fickle and really the AD at Cincinnati. It's going to take a lot of that. They have to let the committee know that, hey, we're not just going to accept the well, we tried. Yeah. Right? You're going to they need to hold the committee accountable too. And I think that starts now. And
that, like you said, that's up to the AD and that's up to the coaches of UC to put it out there. And most importantly, you got to put it out there on the field because that's what really matters, what you do on the field. A win isn't a win. This ain't college basketball. This ain't March Madness. This ain't Duke beating a 5 seed by a point and they win in advance and nobody cares. In college football throughout the regular season, all this stuff matters because, like you said, it's the full body of work. So when you're a Power 5 team or a non-Power 5 team, all they need is one. All they need is one excuse not to put you in there. Mm-hmm. And you gave them one. You gave them a 7-point victory over Navy. Now, and I mean, shoot, you talk about this. You talk about a like opponent. Let's just say, for instance, it comes down to an Ohio State and a UC. Ohio State Big Ten championship, one loss, but UC is a champion at the AAC, and they're undefeated. They're going to look at, okay, how bad did you beat Indiana? How bad did Ohio State beat Indiana? How bad did Ohio State beat Tulsa? How bad did you beat Tulsa? Like, they have two like opponents. Like, all this stuff, all this comes into factors when you're trying to sneak your way into this college football playoff because there's not a doubt in my mind that they have an opportunity. But if they're going to get in, they're only going to be a 4. They're not going to be a 3. They're not going to be a 2. No. They damn sure not going to be a 1. The only way is you to be that 4. But you got to handle your business. So this game that they got coming up next week versus Tulane, hate to say it, you got to rock them. You got to rock them. You got to – a goose egg would be nice. A nice 42-0 win, that would be nice.
Yeah, folks, I'm telling you now, Bearcat fans that are upset, if Ohio State had beat Army or Navy 27-20, and let's play – I mean, and I do this all the time. Bearcat fans, hear me out. Not piling on your team, just I'm holding them to a realistic expectation here. Let's flip the roles here. Let's say Ohio State played Navy and they won 27-20. And let's say that Cincinnati played Indiana yesterday and won 50, whatever it was, to 7. And everyone was chirping about how, man, Ohio State, they shouldn't be penalized for only winning by 7 against Navy. They should be the number 2 team. They should be this. You would be furious. So I need you to use that same logic. This isn't beating up on the Bearcats. This is pointing out and analyzing the realistic situation. 27-20 over Navy is not good enough. Is not good enough. It doesn't mean you're done. I'm not eliminating the Bearcats, but you can't get defensive when people start becoming a little critical because guess what? If the roles were reversed, Kev, we would be bashing Ohio State the same, not bashing. Forget the word bashing because
questioning.
We would be questioning, and we wouldn't be giving the benefit of the doubt to the Buckeyes if they had only won 27-20. Bearcat fans, you wanted to be treated like Ohio State. You wanted to be viewed at like Ohio State and Alabama in the top programs. Well, guess what? With that comes the same criticism those teams get, and you're getting treated like that. That's the only thing I got to keep saying. So Brandon says we have a caller, 518-1410. Brandon, go ahead and patch him in. Who do we have here?
This is
Hello?
Q.
Q?
Hello, can you hear me? Yep.
Yes, sir. I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm an old State fan, but I do like Bearcats. And, I agree with what you guys are saying. There's a lot of factors that go into who they choose. One is how well the fans travel, which equates to money, the history of the team, and, of course, what you've done for us lately. In other words, the current year. Here's the thing that I find interesting, though. On January the 1st, 2021, Peach Bowl, Cincinnati 21, Georgia 24.
Yep.
I find that interesting. And I feel that as long as Cincinnati wins out, they should be in the playoff.
So my only argument with that, Q, is I'm not a fan of the college football playoff committee. The resume is for this year. People like to bring up the bowl game. Now, Kev, you like to bring up bowl games from previous years, right? Like, where are you with that? I just don't believe, and the committee says last year doesn't matter. It's all about this year. But Q, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I hear a lot of that too. Well, Cincinnati proved last year that they can X, Y, Z. I don't know if that's going to actually be seriously considered, but you're not wrong because everything we're saying about the Bearcats not being able to compete with those, everyone said the same thing heading into that Peach Bowl matchup, and look at how close it was. It could have gone either way. So I see where you're coming from.
I think it's all about expectations. I use those bowl games as expectations going into the upcoming season. Like, how did you finish last year, especially when you're a UC program that went up against Georgia with all those guys that are potentially going to be in the NFL and all that type of stuff, and they held their own. And, we talked about this before to nauseum about the guard that ended up getting kicked out the game. I think he's actually on the Browns team now. Got kicked out of that game for unsportsmanlike conduct and everything like that. And then the freshman came in there and basically false started every single time UC had the ball. So it's that factor that UC was in that game and proved that, like, okay, we keep an eye on them, like maybe they can hang with this team. So it's all about the expectations, because ultimately the season tells you what it's going to be. You can have all the expectations in the world, but if you don't live up to those quote unquote expectations, you won't find yourself in the position to play for a college football championship. Look at Clemson. Everybody expected DJU to be the next best thing since sliced bread, and he's not. You know what I'm saying? Clemson was expected to be the ACC champions. They're not going to be the ACC champs. So it's all about what you're going to do with this upcoming opportunity. UC has the opportunity. They have a chance. And for a team that's not in the Power 5, really, that's all you can really ask for is a legitimate chance. Because there's been other teams that didn't have a legitimate chance. All those Boise State teams, they didn't really have a chance. Those TCU teams before they joined the Big 12, they really didn't have a chance. The TCU was in the Big 12, and then they got kicked out of the Final Four. You know what I mean? So you got a chance, but ultimately you can't complain about stuff if you're not handling your business. So if you're supposed to be a top 4 team, you got to start rocking and blowing teams out. You got to rock them and blow them out. This game versus Tulane, you got to embarrass Tulane. And, we talked about this before with Coach Meyer talking about that 50-0 win over Wisconsin propelled them into the first college football championship. Unfortunately, this is where it is. This is what it is. And it ain't like people don't know this. Like, this is a known factor. Like, I remember before the BCS, they tried to remove that. They tried to remove the style points from it. That's what the BCS was about, trying to remove that. Because back before, teams were trying to put up 60 and 70 points on opponents and everything like that. The BCS tried to remove that, but now it's back. So now everybody knows that style points matter. Coach Fickle knows it. Everybody else knows it. You got to go out there and show it.
All right, Q, thank you for the call, man. Appreciate it. And by the way, I'm really jealous of that dude's voice. I would pay big money to have that voice. I would be, I could host some kind of slow jams type show with that voice. Q, I'm a big fan of you and your voice. I'm just throwing that out there, man. That was some impressive stuff. All right. So a lot of stuff coming in on Facebook. Kev, Petty King right here on Facebook says UC is another reason why they need to go ahead and make the playoffs, 8 to 10 teams. Petty, here's the concern with that. Every argument you're making about UC over the 2 and 3 and 4 teams, that exists for 6, 7, and 8. Like, I don't think that, I mean, I still think you can make the same arguments we're making about Ohio State and Alabama, Georgia, and others against Cincinnati. That those same arguments will exist with Michigan, with Iowa State, well, not Iowa State, but Oklahoma State before they got beat. Mm-hmm. Everything we've said, I don't think that changes. People keep thinking, well, if you just add more teams, they could definitely be one of those 8 teams.
Right.
I disagree mainly because of the fact that the resume still matters. And I still think there's a lot of resumes that will be better than Cincinnati's at the end. But being undefeated, that's the resume trumper. But I tell you what, a lot of good stuff coming in. Sean Bolin said what Petty King said. I just don't see that. I think it would increase their chances of making it. Don't get me wrong. But if you think that the same factors that are keeping them out of the 4 team most likely wouldn't exist for the 8 team, I disagree with that. I think that the bar would still be the same. Okay, we're doing a lot here. We're going to step away for a few moments. Appreciate Brandon, who's taking the calls back in the studio. Give Brandon a call. Bearcat fans, let's chat. Kevin and I are live here at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall, but we're also taking your calls for those of you who have us tuned in around the Miami Valley. 518-1410. Let's continue talking Bearcats, Ohio State college football playoff scenarios. We'll also, of course, dive into week 7 of the NFL season. Bengals, Ravens coming up, a 1 o'clock kickoff. We'll talk about all of that when we come back.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
October is Fire Safety Month, and Menards has what you need to keep your home safe. From smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to fire extinguishers and more, Kidde Home Safety products keep your family protected from emergencies. Right now, all Kidde safety products are 11% off. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through October 30th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Nobody protects you from mayhem in Ohio like Allstate. I'm a broken traffic light. Stop and go is the name of my game. It's easy. You go, they go. Or was it they go, you go? And if you have the wrong car insurance, these repair costs could stop you in your tracks. So get Allstate's new low auto rate and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Not available in every state, based on coverage and limits selected. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Did you know that you might be overpaying for your prescriptions? It's true. But it's okay, because there's an easy, convenient solution. Check GoodRx. GoodRx lets you compare prices at different pharmacies and shows you where to get the lowest price. And GoodRx works at all the major pharmacies, like Walmart, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and Kroger. Here are a few stories from healthcare providers about GoodRx.
My first reaction was like, holy smokes, is this for real? Like, can we really get this price down by $300 for this patient? And yes, we did.
I have used it myself. Even having health insurance, I was able to look up some medicines that I was going to get, and it saved me a good amount of money.
With GoodRx, the price is the price. You pull it up and you see the price. That's the price when you get to the pharmacy.
GoodRx is helping millions of people, and it can help you too. For simple, smart savings, check GoodRx. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance. In 2020, GoodRx users saved an average of 79% off retail prices. Individuals compensated for their time. Visit goodrx.com/radio to learn more.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Procter & Gamble, the company behind some of your favorite brands such as Tide and Pampers, is hiring technicians at the Dayton Mixing Center. From day one, P&G offers a competitive rate of $18.50 plus vacation and a comprehensive benefits package, including medical, dental, and 401k. Text PG Dayton to 25,000 to apply today.
Bodega, Alpha and Omega.
Siamese sailors sell celery sandwiches. Swing about a serving platter.
Hey, Jamie.
Yes.
Did you want to try reading that line on the script there?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. You could say big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive. That one?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just not warmed up yet. Shouldn't be long. Detector test.
Bundle your home and auto with Progressive today.
The marmot mangled my mushy pork pancake.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
If the Oral-B IO electric toothbrush had a theme song, this would be it.
I think you're gonna wanna see this.
Oh, you're going to want to see it, all right. Only IO technology combines Oral-B's dentist-inspired round brush head with gentle micro vibrations for a clean that'll...
Make you say wow.
Exactly. Get the wow of a professional clean feel every day with the Oral-B IO.
You're gonna see what everybody's talking about.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
Exam 4 needs to be sanitized.
Mersana's MRI clinic isn't operating at max efficiency. She needs a new certified tech certifiably now.
Someone's waiting in room 2 for an ACL scan. Can you handle that?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. With Indeed Instant Match, we immediately show you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed meet your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
All sports. All the time. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
1, 2, 3.
WING 1410 Dayton.
Knock, knock. Happy Halloween.
Dayton's ESPN Radio.
All right, welcome back. Justin Kinner Kev Nash with you live from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. I hope everyone's having a great weekend, and they got a lot of big NFL games coming up. But continuing to talk college football, what a day it was yesterday. 27-20, the final, the Bearcats over Navy. And you would think that they lost. A lot of Cincinnati Bearcat media, of course, getting real defensive of the team, saying apparently winning doesn't matter and all this stuff. And I totally get their frustration. But what, as I've been reiterating from the beginning, you wanted to be held to the Buckeye standards. You wanted to be held to the Alabama standards, and that's what's happening now. Alabama can't win 27-20 over a Navy and not be criticized. And nothing's happened to the Bearcats yet, Kev. No one's eliminated them. Right. The first poll hasn't even come out yet. So I don't know why. I mean, to me, what that says is it's insecurity from Bearcat fans. If you're getting angry at the criticism hasn't done anything to you yet. Because you know who's also being criticized? Alabama's being criticized today because they didn't look Alabama-esque over the last couple of weeks. They've been in some dogfights, including the loss against Texas A&M, and they blew out their opponent last week. But again, they were tested at home last night of all places. So it's not as if was it at Tennessee? No, that was at Alabama. I think it was at Alabama. It was at Alabama. I just wanted to make sure I was getting that right. But no, at the end of the day, there's a lot of teams. I mean, Ohio State was winning and got criticized. Everyone's like, well, how come we're being picked on? Well, were the Buckeyes being picked on when they only won by 21 against Tulsa? If that's what you're thinking.
We have people ready to fire a coach.
Yeah. You Bearcat fans weren't defending Ryan Day and Ohio State when they only won by 21 against Tulsa, but you want to be forgiven for winning 27-20 against Navy. That's not how it works. But keep in mind, Ohio State got criticized for weeks. And they might be the number 2 team when the first playoff poll comes out a week from Tuesday, depending on what Ohio State does against Penn State next Saturday. So being criticized now means nothing. Take the criticism. All Luke Fickell and the Bearcats have to do, Kev, keep winning. Yep. Just keep winning. And as long as they keep winning, they will remain in the hunt. And that's all that matters. Yesterday wasn't a pretty win. It was the win that everyone was looking for to poke the bubble a little bit, but the win keeps them in the conversation, and that's all you can ask for. Because had you lost that game 27-20, we're not even talking about you this morning. We're saying, well, it was a cute run. Thank you for playing, and off we go with the rest. You're still in the conversation. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. You're exactly where you want to be. You're in the conversation. You're there. You're not out of it. So that's all you really can ask for, to be perfectly honest. You take a look around the rest of college football, man, this thing is wide open, man. There's tons of teams losing left and right, man. And I did want to ask you, where are you at with this whole Ohio State Oregon thing? Because Oregon beat Ohio State, but I hear a lot of people saying they have Ohio State ranked number 2 behind, obviously, Oregon, a team that they lost to. Where are you at with it?
If Oregon's undefeated and they don't have a loss, they're not. There's no way Ohio State, even playing as well as they are now, I wouldn't put them in front. I don't think that win. Look, the win over Ohio State's why Oregon is still in the conversation. It's why that the Pac-12 still has a fighter's chance. Like if Oregon wins out, they're going to be in that. They're going to be those bubble teams that we're all looking at. I just think right now too, people hate the eye test, but we can't eliminate the eye test.
Mm-hmm.
People hate it, but it matters. And you watch the way Oregon plays football, they're a good football team. They beat Ohio State. But we can't, the committee knows too, looking at the beginning, Ohio State has gotten better. CJ Stroud's a Heisman candidate now. I thought it was going to take beating Penn State for him to be that Heisman. He's a Heisman candidate right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State has scored 14 consecutive drives. On 14 consecutive drives, back-to-back weeks, they have not punted. They have scored on every down. I think towards the end last night they were just trying to run out, but like on plays that they're actually physically trying to score in the heat of the battle, they're unstoppable right now. If Oregon's as undefeated, no, I'm with you. I can't overlook that loss. I'm not technically not looking at now. Oregon's acting like, oh, we're being ignored for that win over Ohio State. No, you're in the conversation, but you're being penalized for the bad loss. Good wins are expected to be, if you're a team that's in the race, you have to have a good win or two. That's why Cincinnati, they're in the hunt because of that Notre Dame win. You can argue, let's say that Bowling Green was the team on the schedule instead of Notre Dame, and Cincinnati's still undefeated right now. They're not in the top 4.
Right.
You need that top win to bring you to the table. But after that, everyone has a top win. Well, we beat Alabama, we beat Ohio State. Okay, well, Ohio State, they're going to have some top 25 matchup, but they're bludgeoning teams. Oregon's played some bad teams like Ohio State has, and they've been winning by 1 or 2 possessions. It hasn't been pretty. So, even the win that they just got the other day against UCLA, a solid team, but a 3-loss team. I know UCLA was playing good football to start the year, but that's a 3-loss football team that you just beat by 1 possession. There's something that's that Cincinnati treatment that we're talking about. It's not even treatment. It's just the moving of the goalpost, if you will, I guess. But I do think there's a lot of moving variables that don't make it one team scenario is not the other team's scenario. Right. There's so many moving parts.
Like you said, it's a lot of moving parts. For me personally, I gotta put a lot of credence into head-to-head matchups. And I know teams are allowed to get better, and I know the teams that Ohio State was early in the season isn't the same team now. Obviously, everything that's going on with the defense and the defensive switches they've made, and kudos to Coach Day and the whole staff for making those switches. But I got to put a lot of credence on a head-to-head matchup. And we could talk about style points and eye tests and everything like that, and I'm a big eye test person. And, yes, looking at it, Ohio State looks outstanding. But at the end of the day, that team did lose to the other team. And I just have a difficult time putting a team that you lost to ahead of them. I have a difficulty with that. And the same way when Penn State was ultimately Big Ten champions and they didn't go to the college football playoff after beating Ohio State, I had a problem with that. And I tried to remove myself from my Ohio State fandom when I'm looking at that. But
that was a 2-loss Penn State team, though.
But they beat Ohio State, and they probably had the best win out of anybody in college football that year over Ohio State. So, the wins got to matter, too, because I know a lot of people focus on, well, who did you lose to? Well, I want to know who did you beat, because looking at Alabama, I know on the eye test says Alabama's a good football team, but they ain't beat nobody yet. But I know Oregon beat somebody. I know for sure Oregon beat somebody. So, I want people to look at the wins and everything like that. And it's all going to play out. But one of my biggest fears is if it's down to Oregon and Ohio State for that last spot. What is the committee going to do? Because I hear head-to-head matchups when they talk about ranking teams. Is that going to happen at the end of the season? That's scary hours for me, man. As a fan, I want Ohio State to get in, but if they bring that up at the end of the season and say, Oregon is the Pac-12 champion, and Ohio State is the Big Ten championship. And Ohio State is at 5 and Oregon is at 4, and they say it was the head-to-head matchup. I can't be mad at that.
But it's not like, and again, nothing's ever isolated though. It doesn't just come down to the head-to-head. It comes down to the full body of work, and the head-to-head's part of it. And that's why I said the head-to-head is why Oregon's still in the conversation. If Oregon doesn't have a top 25 win, like they don't, let's say that you take the one top 25 win they have over Ohio State off the table, and they played Bowling Green that week and blew them out. I keep using that as an example, but
what you got against the Bowling Green Falcons?
I'm inserting any team. We could just say
last year
Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, it was Miami of Ohio.
It should still be Miami of Ohio. I mean, that damn linebacker that called in from Miami of Ohio that yelled at me. I'm still salty. I think his name was John. Angry John was his name, not Cool, Calm, and Collected Kinner.
Use not Bowling Green, but Ball State, since they're not in Ohio. They're in the MAC. Ball State.
Miami of Ohio. We'll just go back to them.
Eastern Michigan. There's a ton of teams you can use just from the MAC. You got to bank on the ones that are enlisted in the area.
Oh, Kentucky then. How about the Bearcats or something? I mean, whatever. No. But the bottom line at this point, too, so Ohio State, the win at Minnesota, Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, Maryland, IU. Here's the biggest thing working against Ohio State. You haven't beat one person. But
that's my point.
66. Here's their scores the last couple weeks. 59-7, 52-13, 66-17, 54-7, 41-20, and the 41-20 was considered a bad win, by the way. And their losses, one possession against Oregon. At the end of the day, though, Ohio State, this is why this Penn State game coming up is a no-brainer. Like, that's really what's going to wash it out. Now, I'm trying to pull up Akron. We can use Akron, insert Akron as far as that's concerned. But I'm trying to look for Oregon, just look at their full body of work. I'm just passing the MAC right now. I should just click on one of those teams. But again, 3-1 in conference play. Their loss is bad. Ohio State has a loss, as does Oregon. Oregon's loss is worse than Ohio State's loss. And again, when you want to talk about wins, Ohio State doesn't have that big quality win yet, but they are bludgeoning teams. This is why people get mad at the eye test factor, but the eye test factor matters. And Ohio State's they're passing that test with flying colors right now.
While you're looking at that, I want to give props to the big guys up front, the offensive line. Look, we could talk about how C.J. Stroud's the Heisman Trophy contender, how Travion Henderson is about to break records that Maurice Clarett said. We can talk about Chris Olave about to become the all-time touchdown receiver over David Boston.
Was he 4 away?
4 away from David Boston. We can talk about all the weapons and everybody's butt naked wide open. None of that happens without the offensive line. Some of these holes at the offensive line are opening up. Me and you could go through, like, untouched. Like, dudes aren't touched until they get into the secondary. So I want to give props to all the offensive linemen for the Buckeyes. They're not going to get their love until, April, until it's, draft time when they get their name called. But the offensive line for the Buckeyes has been dominant. He's sitting back there patting the ball 4 to 5 times, tap dancing, waiting for somebody to break open. And when they break open, they're wide open. And that's all because the offensive line is giving them time to throw the ball. And these running lanes are there for 3 running backs because of the offensive line. So kudos to the offensive line. I like to show the big guys some love.
All right. Well, we got some callers lined up. I'm excited to head to the phone lines now. 518-1410, 518-1410. Let's go to Brandon. Let's go to Springfield. Brandon, get us Tom from Springfield, please. Tom, welcome in, sir.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir. What you got for us, man?
I'd like to talk about the Big Ten race. The top 3 teams right now as they stand, excluding Penn State. We talk about the eye test, and these teams are beating up on all these other schools, but there isn't one Big Ten team that has a signature win. Not a one. We talk about Michigan's. By the way, I'm a graduate of Michigan State, so I might be a little biased here, but I'm not. I'm just being
I'm a big
truthful.
Mel Tucker fan.
Yes. Not one of those teams has a signature win. Us Spartans thought that we had a signature win with Miami. That didn't pan out. Michigan people talk about that win over Washington. Washington is nothing what they used to be. And I hate to say this, but Ohio State has not beaten anybody. And if you take a look
they haven't beat anybody. The one team they played that was somebody, they lost.
Exactly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I guess we'll find out here in the next 3 weeks.
No, I'm with you. And real quick on that, to feed off your point, Tom, is the Big Ten has benefited from other teams, because you bring up a lot of good points that the Big Ten hasn't beat anybody, but you want to know what the Big Ten has done that other conferences have struggled to do? They're winning. I mean, Michigan State, Michigan, undefeated. Ohio State, I know they have the one loss against Oregon. It was a close one, but they're bludgeoning everybody else. The big reason that Cincinnati has a shot, the big reason the Big Ten has so many contenders in the race is because Clemson and the ACC crumbled. Texas and the Big 12 kind of fell apart outside of Oklahoma at this point. Oklahoma State even went down this past weekend. I agree with it that those teams haven't beat anybody, and if other big programs that we are traditionally used to seeing at the top, if those teams do what they normally do, we probably wouldn't be talking as much about Michigan State and Michigan, but to their credit, they have done what other programs have failed to do, and that's win football games. And that's all and this is why we keep saying that about the Bearcats. You can't control what others say, but the only thing you can control is the game that you play, and that, of course, you keep winning. Michigan State, big one for them. They got to keep winning. But that's what the Big Ten has done to me, Tom, to kind of counter you on that, is that, hey, they've won to where Texas and some of these other top programs have not.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out a lot come Saturday.
Hey, you feel good about that matchup with Michigan on Saturday?
Yes, I just checked Vegas, and they got the Wolverines a 2-point favor. So Michigan State likes being a dog.
There you go.
Where's that game at?
East Lansing.
Yep. That's a big one. That's a big one.
Big noon kickoff, baby.
Hey, that one deserves to be big noon now since Ohio State or Penn State screwed it all up. But hey, thank you so much for the call, Tom. Take care.
Okay. All right.
All right. Good stuff. I appreciate the calls. 518-1410. Let's go to Nick. Brandon, give us Nick. Nick, you there? Nick A. All right. 518-1410. Let's go to Keith.
Hey, I'm here.
Keith, how are you, sir? Oh, Nick. How are you, Nick?
Yes. Hey, so Kev, I know you're a younger fella, but your Florida State Seminoles did benefit from a head-to-head in 1993 when they got beat by Notre Dame in the game of the century, right? Went on to win the national championship. So the head-to-head doesn't really matter. I know what you're saying, but when you look at Ohio State at the end of
that was a different era, though. That was back when humans did the whole voting. That was the poll era. Like that's two different situations.
Humans are still doing it now, bud.
Yeah, I'm with you. What I'm saying, like, that was a different era, and I'd had a problem with it then too. Like, I don't think that's fair. Like, if you have a head-to-head loss with somebody, that head-to-head should matter. Just like it's like the tiebreakers they use in the NFL, they go to head-to-head matchups.
I think when you look at it, though, at the end of it, Ohio State's going to have wins over that team up north, the little sister, and then whoever in the West, which would probably be a one-loss Iowa team, right?
The little sister? Who's the little sister?
That team in East Lansing.
Oh, Sparty? So Michigan's the big brother?
That's what they say up there.
Oh, okay. I'd rather be in Sparty shoes, but that's cool.
I just go by what they say up there. So I think that's really got to stick out. And I think when you look at it, I was one that was like, UC went out and scheduled Indiana. They went out and scheduled Notre Dame. If they just run the table, it should be in. But when you start looking at what Indiana barely, beaten Indiana, they showed a graphic yesterday that the game was so close until that one linebacker got thrown out of the game, and they played the whole game with that linebacker. In Ohio State, I don't even think he made a couple good plays, but just looking at that, you can't look at that game and say, UC is going to be better than Ohio State in a Final Four.
Yeah, and to go back to the Oregon thing, too, because my internet is slow as hell, and with everyone talking, it gave it time to load their schedule finally. Here's the problem for Oregon. It's the same problem we're talking about with Cincinnati. Yes, winning matters. Oregon did win the head-to-head with Ohio State, but on the outside of that matchup, you look at Oregon, who won a close one-possession game against Fresno. All right, they beat, they lost to Stanford 31-24. They beat Cal by one possession, 24-17. Not acceptable. UCLA 34-31, a 3-loss team. I know winning matters, but that's why they're being rewarded for the winning, because that's why they're in the conversation. But now you start start dissecting the wins and comparing the wins. And yes, Oregon has the best win between them and Ohio State, but you look at Ohio State bludgeoning their opponents. I mean, there's no doubt on the field who's better between Ohio State and their opponents. Oregon, sometimes you got to wonder, especially against UCLA, California, they lose to Stanford and Arizona and others, and Fresno State back in week 1. So that's what's working against Oregon, is it's not as if they're bludgeoning opponents. Had they bludgeoned opponents since Ohio State, even with the loss, they would probably still be sitting closer to the top.
All right, guys, you guys have a good one, man. Go Bengals.
I'll give you a go Bengals. Thanks, Nick. It's interesting, though, that Bengals matchup today as a Browns fan. I'm sitting here like rooting against the Bengals because it's easy to do, but I'm kind of like, it would pain me to see the Bengals be a game ahead of the Browns again for another week. But at the same time, as a Browns fan, any chance of winning that division, you need the Ravens to be knocked down a peg or two. So if the Bengals can knock them down, close that gap, because Ravens first place team. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, as a Browns fan, that's who needs to go down. So I can't stomach pulling for Cincinnati, but it would really help the Browns for the Ravens to lose. But for my mental health, I don't know if I could handle Bengals fans for another week of them being ranked ahead of, or being, sitting on top of the Browns in the standings, man.
You got a lot of vacation days to use if the Bengals win. You can take next week off.
There you go. All right, 518-1410. We'll continue taking more of your calls. I know we have Keith and Tyler and a few others on hold. We'll get to you guys on the other side. We'll get into some NFL stuff coming up in a moment, but a lot of good stuff coming in on the Facebook feed as well. It's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show. Go find us on Facebook on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, ESPN Dayton's Facebook page, and ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. You can chime in with your opinions on what we're discussing right there, or give us a call, 518-1410. More of the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live from Frickers when we come back.
Now at Menards, save big money on your next flooring project with 11% off everything. Update your home with Great Lakes Flooring. Vinyl plank is waterproof, durable, and easy to install, making it perfect for any active lifestyle. Right now, get 11% off all Great Lakes vinyl plank flooring. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through October 30th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Do you have standing water, a wet basement, or water in your heat ducts? Hi, this is Jeff Heil from Buckeye Landscaping and Ohio Irrigation and Drainage. At Ohio Irrigation, we have a solution to end your drainage problems. We provide a free custom design and estimate to meet the needs of your home and keep you worry-free when it rains. Call Buckeye Landscaping, Ohio Irrigation, 432-9911, or visit our website, buckeyeindohio.com. That's 432-9911. Stop worrying. Call for a free estimate today.
With just one spray of Microban 24, your hard surfaces are sanitized for up to 24 hours. Touch after touch after touch.
So 6 hours from now?
Still sanitized.
12 hours?
Yep.
18 hours.
We're really doing this.
24 hours.
When used as directed, one spray of Microban keeps killing 99.9% of bacteria touch after touch for, up to 24 hours.
Wow.
Microban 24, the sanitizer 4 out of 5 doctors would use in their own homes. So why aren't you?
Gain presents a tale of longing and long-lasting scent. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Add Gain scent beads for an even longer lasting scent.
KTH Parts Industries in St. Paris, Ohio has immediate openings for second and third shift production associates. KTH promotes from within, offers medical, dental, 401k, attendance bonus, and a competitive wage, starting at just over $19 per hour with annual increases. KTH will be hosting walk-in interviews Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. through 3 p.m. Please bring a resume and photo ID. Visit kth.net for more information. KTH is an equal opportunity employer.
Finding the right Medicare plan may feel impossible, but now it's anything but. With Walgreens Find RX coverage tool, you can compare plans online, over the phone, or in person, making Medicare easier than ever. Easier than picking which true crime doc to watch, figuring out that Wi-Fi password, or putting the duvet cover back on. So if you can do those things, with Find RX coverage, you can definitely Medicare. Find the plan that's right for you by visiting walgreens.com/Medicare.
Hundreds of thousands of people have said goodbye to their overpriced Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile plans and switched to Pure Talk. on the same great 5G coverage as one of those carriers. Get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. The average family is saving over $800 a year. Just dial pound 250 and say Jill50 to save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250. Say Jill50.
But we have a truck leaving with a big order on Tuesday.
Tina's floor manager retired, leaving her tortilla factory flat out.
What do you mean she's on a silent retreat?
She must fill the role and all those orders.
To oversee production.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Schedule virtual interviews and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is...
It's pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
There are many ways to catch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch it live right here on 1410 Wing AM, or you can stream the show at wingam.com. But now we have another way that you can take in the show. You can now watch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER and ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
All right, welcome back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. It's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. We're out here every Sunday morning, usually myself and College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers, of course, but Kev Nash, who's also here this morning, he comes out of the bullpen from time to time. He deals with me Monday through Friday. So it takes a special scenario to get him to come deal with me on a Sunday morning.
No weekends off.
So, yes, definitely for us, that's for sure. But 518-1410, 518-1410, that's the number to call in and join in on the conversation. There's a lot of polls out there, but everyone knows the only poll that matters is the Justin Kinner poll, of course. And my top 20 or my top 10 poll, forget the full 10, but for right now, I put it out on the Facebook page. But I have Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, and Oklahoma at 4. With Cincinnati at 5. And I'm not going to lie to you, I could put Cincinnati at 4. I probably, after I posted it, I was like, probably shouldn't have bumped Cincinnati that far back. I don't think they deserve that far back. I had them at 3. I kept them at 3. I shouldn't have bumped them 2. I can meet Bearcats fans halfway and admit that I was probably wrong for bumping them to 5. But I bumped them because it was a 27-20 win. Oklahoma didn't win pretty either. But again, the full body of work to me, I just look at it as Oklahoma still the resume tops Cincinnati's to a certain extent. Bearcats, had you blown Navy out? No questions asked. I keep them at 3, maybe bump them to 4 with that. Alabama getting another big win yesterday as well. They looked, it was close and they pulled away. They pulled away at the end.
Yeah.
Alabama and Ohio State are very similar. Strong run games, solid quarterbacks, good wide receivers, questionable defense. But I think where Ohio State's separating themselves from Alabama, the defense is playing well. But to Alabama's credit, you're playing Texas A&M, you're playing Tennessee. Ohio State's had Maryland and Rutgers beat up Maryland. They had Rutgers and Indiana beat. It wasn't like it was a fully healthy Indiana team either. the competition's not been the same, but at the same time, the competition didn't matter the first couple weeks of the season. Ohio State's defense was horrendous. It's looked like it's buttoned up. They're swarming to the ball. I know the opponents aren't, the sexiest, but you still got to give Ohio State credit because they're dominating their opponents, which is something Bama and other teams aren't doing right now.
Definitely got to give the Buckeyes a lot of credit, especially the defense. The things that they've changed up on defense, you got to give a lot of credit to Zach Harrison, a guy that I was.
My goodness, he was not good to start
at all. But he's turned it on, and whatever the coaches are doing, whatever he's doing, keep doing it because he's starting to get after the passer the way we expect our defensive ends to get after the passer at Ohio State. And you're right, the competition level hasn't been the greatest in the world, but guess what? They're bludgeoning them. They're blowing them out. And you know what? A lot of these teams, even when you're in these blowouts, these teams are expected to score, a garbage touchdown or a blown coverage touchdown once the, second and third stringers get in the game. That's not happening. Those backups are finishing out the games as well. So kudos to everybody on the Buckeye staff.
Kev, I know you said you had a question for me, but I want to make sure we get to some of these calls before that. So we'll get to your question coming up here in just a second. Brandon, 518-1410. Give Brandon a call back in the studio, and he'll patch you through to us here live at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. Brandon, we have Chris on the line. Give us Chris. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Hey, what's up? It's Chris Brown, man. I told you guys on the Fleet Show.
The Chris Brown. Chris Brown with the K.
Chris Brown. Yes.
There we go.
How you guys doing?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing well. It was a good weekend. The Browns and the Buckeyes won. I can't complain.
It was, I said last week I predicted a Browns win that backfired. So today I was being a smartass and said, hey, I predict the Browns are going to win 17-14 in a close one.
Hey, the big thing is they won. That's what needed to happen. The whole issues that's going around it is a whole nother story. You know what I mean? That could be talked about for days. But the question I have for you guys is did you guys talk about the OT thing yet?
In what regards?
For college football, the new OT format, like with the Penn State.
To a certain extent, I don't like it. Do you like it, Chris?
No, I don't like it. Like I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm going, why are they going for two already? And then I'm like, why is it only going for two? And then I realized, oh wait, the format changed. So I felt like an idiot.
What amazes me is the same people that rip Major League Baseball for their gimmicky extra inning rule of runners on second. College football does something beyond stupid and gimmicky like this, and we just accept it because we love football, right? Like I don't get it. I don't like the gimmicky stuff in overtimes or extra innings or anything like that.
I think it should be from the 5-yard line.
To go for two from the 5?
Yeah, I think that would make it kind of quote unquote easier when you're compacted and you have the back end of the end zone to act as another defender. It's very hard to get those last 3 yards, especially in the confines of college football and everything like that. So
I agree with you on that.
Try to make these things quicker, but in turn, it turned to go to the 9 overtimes. So you end up playing just as long as you would a regular overtime situation. So I think it just kind of had like a backfiring situation, and especially in the first big one that we've had this season.
Well, we're going to have that situation where we're going to have like a 14 or 15 overtime game. It's going to happen. At some point, it will happen. Like, it's going to be one of those things. But I didn't like that aspect of it. But from the Buckeye standpoint, though, doesn't this feel a little eerily similar to the 2014 season? Where we lost to Vodtech early, and then we end up in the playoffs anyways because like that loss for some reason started kickstarting everything, and we just started finding the team of who they were.
And remember, it wasn't just the fact that they lost early and they won out. It was how they won out, because I didn't give them a shot to make the playoff that year after that loss. But when they beat everyone by they were putting 50 up like it was nothing. Very similar to what they're doing now. 4 straight weeks, 50 plus. You're right, Chris. It does have a very eerie, similar vibe to what we saw back in 14 to a certain extent. And I think the Oregon loss is a better loss than the VTech loss back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Vodtech ended up losing, I think 3 games that year after the Ohio State win. And Oregon's lost the second one. I'm not denying that. But it like Alabama's not blowing everybody out. Alabama, like in 14, they had a down year. If you remember that year, we ended up beating them in the playoff pretty convincingly. And like it seems like it's going that way this year. And like Georgia's kind of like the Oregon. Like, who's going to stop them? 14. You know what I mean? And Oklahoma hasn't been impressive either. Like, I honestly was worried that they were going to lose until they started to turn it on the second half against Kansas.
Caleb Williams, by the way, is why they still have a shot. I believe like it almost feels like a new football team with him. And now, again, saw a lot of Spencer Rattler struggles early yesterday, not from him, but like some of the same issues we've seen with Spencer Rattler to start. And then Caleb Williams, he flipped that switch and everything just kind of fell into place. But, yeah, Chris, hey, good hearing from you. We're out of time, but thank you for calling. Much appreciated.
No problem. You guys have a great day, man.
Later as well. All right, 518-1410. Kev, you said you had a question about the playoff format.
Yeah, so the committee, would you want them to be clear and direct about how they rank teams as opposed to, they're very vague about how they rank things and how when they ask questions, there's very vague answers. Would you want them to have a clear and concise saying like, all right, we look at A, B, C, and D in this order, or do you like a vague approach that they give out to the public?
Here's what I would want. I like the way it is now. But what I think needs to happen is well, I guess to your point, I think clarity needs to be involved more. I think that you want to know a ratings juggernaut. I think every week the committee meets, that should be a show. It should be they should list, everything that's determined in everything that goes on in those meetings to determine it. I think that there needs to be some clarity. I think that it needs to be on camera. I think it needs to be done on a television show or a digital show, whatever. I think it should be done where everyone can hear their reasoning. And I also believe, to your extent, that when they come out, I think that they should have a press conference and answer those questions. They don't do that, and here's why, is because every week that there is no blueprint to get to the playoff. It's so different. College football is not fair. It's the system is horrible. And it's college athletics in general that's horrible. You have 300, well, football's less than that, but basketball, you have like 300 schools or whatever that's D1 basketball. And the gap between the 300th D1 basketball program and the number one basketball program, it's significant. It's even more significant in football. You can't put everyone under this D1 umbrella and hold them all to the same standards. You just can't do it. The Bearcats are a prime example. You can't look at the conference they play in, the level of opponents that they play, the resources they have, and everything else. You can't look at them and hold them to the same standard as Ohio State and others. And then if I'm Ohio State, I can't look at Cincinnati and say, well, you should give them a couple breaks so that they can have a chance against us either. I have a problem with that because Ohio State has to go through Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Iowa. On a normal year, Wisconsin's top notch. You have to go through Wisconsin. And then the Bearcats, they're complaining because they're not getting praised for their one possession win over Navy. So it's hard. I think it's hard on the committee. I don't think that they're being sneaky. I just think that there's no clear-cut answer to the playoff. And it doesn't matter if it's 8, 10, 12, or everyone gets in. There is no way that they can justifiably get out of an explanation for every decision that they've made, because we can counter it with, well, how come back when this team did this? Well, remember, other teams' resumes impact you as well. Cincinnati's resume, you think, by the way, they wouldn't have a shot if Clemson was undefeated and Alabama was undefeated and Georgia's undefeated, the way we all thought that forget that. Clemson lost to Georgia. Right. Let's say Clemson had still won out. They're still in that top 3, top 4. Ohio State's still right there. Oregon, if they're undefeated. The only reason the Bearcats are in the conversation right now is because there has been so much chaos around them. Now, they've done their job of winning the games, but it's not as if this year we're looking at them saying, man, they've proved to everyone that they're a top 4 team. Other teams proved that they couldn't handle the length of the season going up against tougher opponents. There's a lot of teams that have lost that we weren't expecting to lose that has opened the door for Cincinnati to have a shot. That's why the goalposts move year in and year out for that playoff. That's what makes it tough.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a situation where UC's going to need a lot of help. And longer the season goes on, they're going to need more and more help, because at first I used to think like, well, if this goes right, this goes their way, and these dominoes started to fall. Now you need more dominoes to fall because things have broken their way, and they're still not like everybody's on board, because they need to have is everybody on board. They need everybody on the same page and saying like, yeah, they're legit. And they need all these pundits that are out there that release polls like a Joel Klatt, like a Danny Cannell, like all these people, because those voices do hold weight. Those voices do have the ability to sway opinions and everything like that. Until they're all on accord to say, UC is top 4, then it's always going to be a question mark, because if things go Oregon's way and they run the table and they're undefeated Pac-12 champions, and Ohio State is Big Ten champions with 1 loss, and then Georgia is a undefeated team out the SEC, and Oklahoma is undefeated out the Big 12, they're out. And a team like Oregon or an Ohio State could be out too.
And keep in mind, and this is another reason why it's tough for the committee. What gets a team in the playoff this year wouldn't necessarily get a team in the playoff next year.
Right.
So that's an easier way to explain. I think I fumbled my point I was trying to make earlier was that I rambled on it, and I should have just said that. What one team's path to the playoff this year will not be the same next year, and here's why. Cincinnati runs the table this year, Kev, and they get into the playoff because Clemson and the ACC didn't have a representative. The Pac-12, another year of not having a representative, assuming Oregon stubs their toe again. 2 SEC teams get in. Ohio State gets, whatever. A lot of teams had to fall for Cincinnati to get in, and they go undefeated and get in and say, that's it. They've proven that, you go undefeated now as a non-Power 5 and you're the Bearcats, you can get it. Next year they go undefeated again, but Clemson's undefeated.
Right.
Bama's undefeated. Ohio State's undefeated. And you have a 1-loss Oklahoma team that gets in, but you have undefeated Cincinnati. It's like, well, what the hell? Last year we made it. Every year is different. And it's not just what you do. It is what others do around you. Ohio State goes undefeated. They're always in. Alabama's always in. Clemson's always in. Cincinnati going undefeated. It's not always in. They will always need the help of others around them. That's how difficult it is. And to be fair, I really was curious in Iowa. I'm bummed that Iowa lost. I really wanted to see what the committee did with Iowa, because I think that was going to make them more and more interesting as things went on. So,
if Iowa would have won the table, they'd have been in.
But
I have to think that if Iowa wins out, they'll be in, because they will have to beat 1-loss Ohio State team or undefeated Michigan State or undefeated.
But they made the mistake. You can't remember. Ohio State had 1 loss a few years ago to win the Big Ten. They lost. You're allowed to lose. They could have lost by field goal. You can't get blown out. They got blown out. That's why.
Did they get blown out or did they just lose?
Well, they got blown out against Purdue. It wasn't like the level of Purdue putting up 50 or whatever it was like on Ohio State that game, but that was a multi-possession loss. It wasn't a close loss. You can afford a close loss. You can't afford that. But let's look that up. We got to talk NFL when we come back. We'll give you our Week 7 NFL picks for some of the top matchups. We'll talk Bengals-Ravens heading into kickoff, which does kick off in 8 minutes. We'll be back in just a few moments.
First off, congratulations, Keith, as an Ohio State fan. Miami Dolphins fan, it doesn't get much better. Well deserved, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
But this is a Heisman Trophy run by Keith Byers.
I want to congratulate Mr. Byers on his nod to the Hall of Fame for college football.
He's running without a shoe with a touchdown.
Keith, man, you're awesome, dude. Represent the Gym City, man. I love it.
Congratulations to Dayton's own Keith Byers, the 26th Buckeye to be selected to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Truly an honor and a blessing and a privilege, to be one of the ones that go into the Hall of Fame. And I've never been selfish to think it's all about me. No, it's about us. And the city of Dayton, Ohio, has been very, 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 good to me.
Okay, so there's a drag queen, and I think she's Canadian. She doesn't say that she's Canadian in the video, but I think she is. And she's wearing this super fancy purple dress, poofy shoulder pads, real classic princess gown, and boom, right away she goes to the camera. This is a movie strip, and honestly, I have no idea what that is. But at the end of the video, you do understand it. I mean, not really if you're bad at math like me, but you kind of understand it. It's like a college math lecture. Suddenly, math has never been more beautiful and interesting to me. You have to see it. TikTok.
So as you guys know, Mark's gone.
The float artist at Fred's Floral just took off days before the parade. They need a replacement before business passes them by.
And who am I going to get to finish the float?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. With Indeed Instant Match, we immediately show you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed meet your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on the Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com.
All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner Kev Nash live from Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. Frickers is full here this morning as everyone's piling in to watch the Bengals and the Ravens. And, of course, I'm seeing a lot of different NFL jerseys, of course, out and about throughout here. So it's pretty cool, Kev. But nonetheless, big one today, Ravens-Bengals. As a Browns fan, you know, I can't pull for the Bengals in anything. But at the end of the day, I do know this, that although I would get a good chuckle out of the Ravens beating up on the Bengals, I think I need the Bengals to beat the Ravens more than I need the laugh of the Bengals getting destroyed by the Ravens. I'm really torn here. They're a 6.5 point. The Bengals are a 6.5 point dog today. Mm-hmm. Your takeaway on the Bengals and their chances here against the Ravens as we currently sit here?
Definitely have a great chance of winning this game. We saw with the game versus the Packers, it looks like that Bengals defense is legit. You know, Aaron Rodgers had to earn everything that he got out there versus the Bengals, and they went into overtime and everything like that. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is Lamar. He's capable of passing. He's capable of running. He's capable of doing a million and one crazy things. Better be double spackled out there with your tape on your ankles because it's rainy out there. It's slick, and trying to tackle Lamar in open field is scary hours. I do have the Baltimore Ravens winning 24-21.
24-21?
Ravens.
Ravens 31, Bengals 17. 31-17. I think that the Ravens do win by double digits today. I don't think it'll necessarily be a blowout, but I do think that the Ravens win comfortably, if that makes sense. Like, look, this is the first time the Bengals have had, they have had the Buckeyes of schedules. And what I mean by that is they've faced one really good team and a bunch of really bad teams. And the reason I say the Bengals are the Buckeyes of the NFL right now is because, well, the Bengals have beat up on a lot of bad teams, and the one good team they faced, they lost to. Ohio State's beat up on a ton of bad teams, and the one good team they faced, they lost to. So this is the second. There's a huge test for the Bengals. They, they showed that they can hang with the Packers. The last time they played, the Packers Super Bowl favorites out of the NFC. It's going to be a good one here today, but this matchup means more than that Packers matchup because this is in the division, and the top two teams are going head-to-head today. I don't think people hear, the top two teams going head-to-head, the Bengals and the Ravens. I don't think people are legitimately looking at it like that. But if, depending on how the Bengals look today, it'll be viewed that way moving forward. The Bengals beat the Ravens today. It's kind of be hard for me and others to argue that the Bengals aren't a legitimate playoff contender and a division contender too. If they beat the Ravens today, look out, because I'm not going to be able to come up with too many excuses as to why we shouldn't believe in them. Just saying. We only have about 60 seconds, but yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm anxious to see what happens on Monday's show.
The hater mic is being fully charged as we currently sit here.
Vacation day coming up.
Oh, for you or for me? That hater, Mike, I'm going to have a suspension day coming up soon if I keep it up. My blood pressure was pretty high on Tuesday of all days. All right, folks, have a great day. The Keith Byers Show tomorrow from noon to 1. Keith Byers will give you his updated top 10 after the crazy college football Saturday that we just experienced. Where will the Buckeyes fall in his poll? Where will Alabama fall in his poll? Where will the Bearcats fall? We'll talk about all that. Of course, the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. We'll dive into all of that tomorrow as well. And we appreciate all those who called and came out today. Full house here at the Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. Shout out to the Sladens over here. They took in some brew fries, a couple beers, and I'll be joining them for a beer here after the show. So there you go. Have a good night, folks. Enjoy the Bengals getting beat up by the Ravens coming up.
Go Bucks.
Until next week, it's a Sunday Morning Tailgate Show live from Frickers.
First off, congratulations, Keith, as an Ohio State fan. Miami Dolphin fan doesn't get much better. Well deserved, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
But this is a Heisman Trophy run by Keith Byers.
I want to congratulate Mr. Byers on his nod to the Hall of Fame for college football.
He's running without a shoe with a touchdown.
Keith, man, you're awesome, dude. Represent the Gym City, man. I love it.
Congratulations to Dayton's own Keith Byers, the 26th Buckeye to be selected to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Truly an honor and a blessing and a privilege, to be one of the ones that go into the Hall of Fame. And I've never been selfish, think it's all about me. No, it's about us. And the city of Dayton, Ohio has been very, 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 good to me.
Attention Class A CDL drivers. Looking to be more than just a number? Yoel Transportation in Dayton is looking for drivers with at least 1.5 years experience. Yoel has open positions for no-tarp flatbed drivers and no-touch regional or local van drivers. Yoel is ELD compliant and offers 401k with match, medical, dental, vision, holiday pay, vacation, safety bonuses, and now has a rider policy. Call Rick or Joe at 937-294-5933 and ask about the $5,000 sign-on bonus today.